Welcome to Weather on Earth 25, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this new video for October and November 2020. In order to see how things might come forward, we might have to look a little bit towards the past, the last 2 months. These months were supposed to be fairly active, actually really active, considering mostly tropical cyclone activity and also some earthquakes, according to astrology and numerology. It turns out that at least in the Atlantic Ocean basin, it turned out very, very busy. There was a very powerful hurricane that hit Louisiana in late August, and another strong hurricane that hit also the northern Gulf Coast in mid-September. We've also gotten so far into the season with so many named storms that they ran out of names. Now we're using the Greek alphabet. The second time ever that has happened in history, the only other time being the year 2005. Other parts of the world, like the Pacific, Eastern Pacific and Western Pacific, have actually been very, very quiet. So it looks like most of the tropical activity is happening in the Atlantic, which is pretty good in line with what 2020 was supposed to bring for the season anyway. And there are no signs that this is going to stop now that we're entering October and November. October could actually be a very busy month for the tropics once again, so the 2020 season is likely far from over. Earthquakes were not that commonplace in August and September, despite it looking like there could have been something. This method is not perfect, and astrology and numerology can only go so far. It looked like September would be a big month for earthquakes. Hasn't really been the case. October and November have that look to them again, that they could be very big earthquake months, but it's not a guarantee. Overall, though, my friends, October and November are looking potentially very, very active, and I wish I had better news, but that's the update. Looks like pretty interesting, tough times ahead when it comes to weather and earth events. We shall see. But as always, everyone, here are my predictions. Let's get started. Alrighty, folks, it's that time again. Time to look at the month charts for the dates ahead. That's the best way to start a prediction video, to see what might be coming and share with you all. Here before us, we have the Astro-numerology chart for October 2020. Just like in my previous videos, this chart shows the combination of astrology, which is Chinese astrology dominant, but also with a little touch of Western astrology, and also a very big emphasis on numerology. And the combined indicators from all these different sources gives us a scale on which we can look at the yellow-orange line, which is the total risk. Total risk for natural disasters, that is. You see, the blue line and the green lines generally indicate how the energy that favors natural disasters changes from one day to the next based on a formula that I've made over the years based on Chinese astrology, and numerology. Adding all this together yields the yellow-orange line. So for the purpose of this prediction video, that's the line that we will focus on the most, the total, the combined effort. You will notice that gray horizontal line at the number 6. That horizontal line is the dividing line between dates that generally have little to no risk and dates that have low risk onwards to medium and high and beyond. A risk date will be a date of level 6 and above. That's what the levels are for. Point system based on this formula once again. Numerology yields up to 5 points. Western astrology yields 1 or 0. And Chinese astrology yields up to 5 as well. So Chinese astrology and numerology are the main indicators for the main part of the risk of a date. Now that I've explained that a little better, let's see what October offers. So we start October Actually, on a slightly quiet note, at least the first 2 days of October were below that gray line at around 4.5 on the level. It rises up to level 7 on October 3rd and drops to 6.5 or level 6.5 on October 4th. So there's some risk there, followed by a quick break on October the 5th, only to rise again to a little bit above 6 on October 6th and October 7th. So basically, we got 4 risk dates with 1 break in between. So a 2-day risk period could favor short duration events, probably linked to maybe flash flooding event or probably a quick hidden tropical storm or hurricane. Since it's still early October, I would not be surprised if there was a hurricane between October 3rd and October 7th. So that's for starters. Earthquake-wise, possibly October 3rd, since it's the beginning of that risk period, and a quick little jump from the 2nd to the 3rd could favor an earthquake, just looking at the graph. After that, we have some quiet before the next little peak on October 11th. Now, October 11th is by itself, so that's what we call a lone risk date. When this happens, it means that anything that happens is likely to just happen on that date. So a very short duration event, possibly sudden event, such as an earthquake, or possibly a tornado, or something along the lines of maybe a landslide. So that's October 11th. It quiets back down again until we get to October 15th. Here is where I believe it begins the real second half of October, like the flip side of things. We go from a more or less average looking month to a very active looking part of the month. From 14th October to October 15th, there's a massive jump all the way up to level 8 on the 15th. And that, to me, is very sudden and it indicates possible large earthquake. But we also have more risk dates following the 15th. The 16th, 17th, 18th are all right in line after the 15th without dropping below the gray line. So this period is actually a little longer. It's October 15th through the 18th. That's a 4-day risk period and a very, very favorable risk period for a possible hurricane event. It also happens to be mid-October, which is right around the time when we have the second peak of hurricane season. Most really big October hurricanes tend to happen around the middle of the month. This could be it. This could be a very interesting part of the month for that. The 18th also has a little peak before the drop below the gray line. So I would say as far as earthquakes are concerned, maybe October 15th and the 18th are dates to watch. After that, we drop again below the gray line for a little bit before another small peak on October 21st, which is almost identical to the one of October 11th. So what I said for October 11th goes for October 21st as well. Possible short, sudden event, maybe a moderate-sized earthquake or a tornado. After that, a few days of calm until we get to October 24th, which is this huge peak you see on the graph. That date is very, very interesting because we go from, what is that, level 4 on October 23rd, and then jump all the way to level 10 on October the 24th. And it slowly comes down from there. The 25th is also pretty high up there. And then the 26th, 27th, the risk lowers, but it's still above the gray line, so we're still talking about a risk period here. So basically, October the 24th through October 27th is considered to be a risk period, and a very powerful risk period because of the level of October 24th and 25th. There could be a major earthquake around October 24th or 25th, just based on this graph. Second probability, in my honest opinion, possibly a very powerful hurricane or even a very powerful typhoon on the other side of the world. The typhoon season tends to get really destructive around October and November. So we should not drop our guard if we are in the Western Pacific, like the Philippines or anywhere around Southeast Asia for that matter. But that's a very interesting look on the graph. After that, a quick break before another rise on the 30th and 31st of October at about level 7. So that's a medium risk period, possibly favoring a 2-day duration event like a severe weather or possibly a strong earthquake on either date. Maybe even a very late season hurricane or tropical storm, possible flooding event as well. Would not be surprising. So that's October. I know on November 1st that line will drop again. You just can't tell looking at this graph. But as far as October is concerned, it looks like it's going to be a very, very interesting looking month. It might start a little busy, then get sort of quiet around, the second week, third week of October. And then right around the middle of the month, it really just starts changing. And then the second half of October looks a lot more dangerous than the first. So that's overall how it looks for October. Now, let's proceed to see what November looks like. So, guys, let's have a look at November 2020's chart. Okie dokie. This is November 2020. Again, the same type of chart with levels from 1 all the way to 11. And as you can see, there's a lot of peaks in November that are above 9. This month, my friends, could actually be even bigger than October. In fact, not to really try to sound alarming, but it's very difficult to find a month much busier looking than this one. There's a lot of factors that give high numbers in November. So starting from the beginning, we actually start the month off on a slightly quiet note on November 1st and 2nd, where the level's only at around 5, so right below the gray line. There's a bit of a peak on November 4th by itself, 6.5 on the scale. So this is similar to October 21st, where we may see an earthquake event of moderate size or probably a tornado. Something short-lived. Even a quick flash flood will not be ruled out. It quiets down again up until November 7th. And this is when things really switch. And things take, in my opinion, possibly a dramatic turn. Before I go piece by piece, just look at that graph and analyze from November 7th and go forward in time all the way to November 29th. You will notice that there's only a few dates, just 4 dates by themselves, by the way, that drop below the gray line. That's November 12th, November 15th, November 21st, and November 24th. The only dates between November 7th and November 28th that are not risk days. Every other date is a risk date. That's very significant. We can look at these as individual risk periods, but since there are only 1 day in between each of those periods that are below the gray line, we can actually take a look and say, no, this is actually a whole risk period. So we could even generalize. In reality, we're talking about November 7th through the 28th as a single major risk period for the month, which could offer a lot of different happenings. And it's probably better to break them up into parts to see what the happenings could be. But right off the bat, since there's so many dates in this risk period, I would say maybe a very long duration event, possibly a major flood somewhere around the world. A river flood, or probably crazy tropical activity, one after another. Since it's the month of November, I would lean towards this happening in the Western Pacific. So possibly after such a quiet typhoon season, we could see it go bonkers in November. I wouldn't rule out anything in the Atlantic either, since the season could extend well past the normal bound and actually have an active November as well. But okay, let's quickly go back to November 7th, which is the beginning of all this. A very quick, sharp rise from November 6th to November 7th could tell that this is a sudden risk date, possibly a major earthquake date. But also, since the period really extends all the way till November 11th, which all have dates between level 9 and level 6.5, this could also be a tropical cyclone type date. November can also see cyclones in the Indian Ocean, so this might also be something to look out for. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a powerful tropical cyclone or hurricane or any storm like that, either in the Western Pacific, Indian Ocean, or possibly even the Atlantic. So after the quick drop on November 12th, it goes back up on the 13th and the 14th, then drops again on the 15th. So the 13th, 14th is a shorter time frame around level 7, probably a short duration, severe weather event, in my best opinion. Probable tornado outbreak is what comes to mind, or a flash flood. After that, November 16th sees an extremely sharp rise, up to level 9.5, before dropping way down to 6 on the 17th. That's an extreme change. It could be a very powerful earthquake date as well. But since the dates don't really drop below the gray line until November 21st, we could also see a major tropical cyclone or typhoon between November 16th and November 20th. By the way, November 19th has an equally powerful peak as November 16th. So both dates, in my opinion, are likely major earthquake days or other events of sudden nature because of that crazy change that we see from one day to the next. So November 16th and then November 19th through the 20th. After that, very short break on the 21st, as mentioned a little earlier. And then we have a bit of a peak on the 22nd through the 23rd that goes up all the way to level 8 on the 23rd before a quick drop off on the 24th. So once again, that change tells me there could be a powerful earthquake on November 23rd and 22nd, but the 23rd being the more likely one because it's a stronger day. There could also be severe weather as well. Late November tends to have major severe weather outbreaks more than other parts of the end of the year, so that could be an interesting time frame. A bit short for it to be a hurricane or typhoon, though, so maybe more severe weather and tornado outbreak for November 22nd and 23rd. Then it drops on the 24th, as mentioned, quickly, and then look at that. It rises all the way to level 10 on November 25th. It's actually the peak date of the whole month of November, but barely above the 16th and the 19th. But it's still significant. We go from level 5 all the way to level 10 in the span of one day, and then drop all the way to 6 on November 26th. So that could say that that's a very, very risky date on the 25th for a possible major sudden event, probable earthquake, in my opinion, or a landslide or anything along that line. But since we don't go back below the gray line until November 29th, the November 25th through the 28th is also a risk period that could feature a weather event because it's about 4 days long. So typhoon or Indian Ocean cyclone might be the most likely outcome here besides earthquake. And November 28th also has pretty powerful earthquake potential because it's a secondary peak before the drop-off. After November 28th, things calm down again from November 29th into the 30th. And for those of you hoping for better news, I think December might offer less craziness than November and October. So this might actually be the ending of this crazy phase that we're in right now for potential natural disasters. So that's how November is looking. And with this in mind, guys, just like October's chart and November's chart, we can now proceed and make assumptions, and I can make some predictions for what kind of events could happen, in the 8 to 9 weeks in the future from now. So you guys heard this all from me. I've recorded this on September the 25th. Hopefully it was advance warning in case something happens, but also hopefully nothing crazy happens and this turns out to be much quieter than what it looks like on paper. Alright folks, so let's continue and see what kind of scenarios we can see on certain dates. Take a look again at the individual risk periods for the coming months of October and November that I mentioned already. And most importantly, towards the end of the video, like in my past videos, let's have a look at world maps that show which scenarios could happen on certain dates. I hope you guys find this stuff useful. It's done in the same manner as I've done in my past few videos, so let's proceed. Okay guys, so you've seen the predictions for October and November 2020. Yet again, it looks like we could have really busy times ahead, and let's just keep our fingers crossed that these predictions don't come to pass with severe impacts or anything like that. I'll cautiously say once again, this is not set in stone. This is only what Chinese astrology and numerology point towards certain days of these 2 months having high risks for something to happen. And my intuition and trying to figure out and decipher these maps and these indicators and software to more or less see what could happen and combine that with actual science, which is mostly climatology in this case, and going back through the record books to see what kind of things have happened mostly in October and November. When it comes to earthquakes, these predictions are very novel, and in reality it's very difficult for that to be a real thing, earthquake prediction, but this is included mostly as an experiment. But just in case, if you're in an earthquake area, please keep these dates in mind in case something does try to occur, such as a possible force shock or something that might happen before an even stronger earthquake event occurs. So that's it, folks. I hope you liked this video. Please subscribe as well. Wish you'll get updates from me. I typically post these things every other month. But yep, appreciate the views, guys. Like it. If you like this video, please like. I really appreciate it. And yeah, be safe. Take care of your health. And hopefully I'll see you guys for December and January's predictions. So take good care. Bye-bye.